So this is another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast. I'm Jared.
I'm Brandon.
And Vince McMahon had a lot of answering to do after last week's big, massive layoffs. But of course, when we saw him at Survivor Series, he had something very important to say. He's got himself a $100 million egg. We'll talk all that and more as this week's edition of the Heel to the Face podcast starts right now.
Fans celebrate with me from Rome to Rochester.
Bad luck's going to be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
So another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast is on the air, coming off of Survivor Series 2021 this past weekend in Brooklyn, as well as it's the first time that we are on the air since the big releases that happened in WWE. Brandon, you can follow him on Twitter at Icebreaker21. You can follow myself at Jared on air, and most importantly, follow the show at Heel to the Face. Vince McMahon, though, he made an appearance at Survivor Series, the first since all the big releases, and nope, didn't affect him too much at all about those big releases. He was focused on his $100 million egg. What did you make of this storyline, and how awful was it?
It was terrible. The only good thing that came out of this was we got to see Austin Theory in a big match situation, so that was the positive. It was a major letdown because they promoted the hell out of The Rock and the movie and all of this, which led us all to believe, hey, maybe The Rock shows up in the main event. And guess what? That did not happen. And I was reading some reports before, prepping for the show this week, and I did see that The Rock and WWE, he was at one point in time, he was actually going to appear at the show. And then because how busy The Rock is doing so many different projects, he was not able to fit in his schedule. I believe he's filming in Europe, so that's kind of hard to...
See, I was not as disappointed that The Rock did not show up because of the fact...
What? You're not? What?
I was not as disappointed because of the fact that I wasn't expecting it. Now, I was hoping for it. I was wanting to it.
Wait.
Wanting to have it happen.
I got to stop you there.
I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah,
because with WWE, you can't expect anything, and that's the deal
But
here.
why pump The Rock, one of The Rock movie projects, if you're not having The Rock there?
Well, they were pumping The Rock all night, the 25th anniversary of his debut. I thought they were just going to stick with Survivor Series highlights, and then they were pretty much going over his whole career. They were doing WrestleMania highlights, SummerSlam highlights.
That, to me, just made me feel like, okay, I'm going to wait till the end of the show, and I'm going to see The Rock and Roman have a stare down or something. That's what happened when I watched the show. Initially going in, we were kind of tongue-in-cheek, like, yeah, man, 25 years, Rock, this is the debut, maybe he's there. But when they were showing all the stuff that they showed, going through his career, talking about the movie. They had the damn egg situation. That told me that was The Rock was going to be there. And when The Rock did not show up...
that told me too much. That told me the fact that they were doing so much kind of gave away to me that The Rock was not going to be there. Because they were doing too much. I feel like if they were going to do it as a surprise, then they would have probably kept The Rock, when it comes to his Red Notice and all the Rock references, they would have kept him a little more down low.
Here's the thing. You can't just put it out there, The Rock's 25th anniversary. You're doing all these things to promote him, and then you don't deliver on the goods, which is The Rock. To me, that's not good business. And Vince is usually, lately, let's be honest, the business side of things has been interesting.
Let's look at the business side of it. Obviously, going back to what we were just talking about, the big golden egg. Now,
yeah.
I thought it was a stupid storyline regardless of what it was going to lead to. I was hoping maybe it was going to lead to something good, but regardless of what it was going to lead to, I thought it was stupid. And then when we find out what it led to, made it even more stupid.
Here's the thing: you didn't like the payoff though with Austin Theory. I like
the payoff in the sense of like Austin Theory getting a title shot. That's great, and all, but literally, this was a storyline that started like at the beginning of Survivor Series,
and ended at Raw,
and then ended at Raw just for Austin Theory to get a shot at the title, like
it's
the main event in which he lost.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Like it was a weird way to get somebody a push, so to speak. Austin Theory,
like this isn't a big push. This is Austin Theory getting a title shot on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, but he's in the main event picture, for the night. So that tells me all I need to know. And then here's the thing: you got Austin Theory taking a selfie with Vince, like. That tells you how much stock they have in Austin Theory. I'm telling you right now, Vince wouldn't do these things with Austin Theory taking a selfie with Austin Theory. Let's be honest. Vince likes to keep things, he's not a selfie kind of guy.
I imagine he also wouldn't have one of his talent get to travel the whole country with their legend talents like The Undertaker and Mankind and Jimmy Hart and all these other people as part of the essential host of this flagship show on A&E where they go find treasures of old wrestlers and introduce them pretty much to the world that we know in WWE as AJ Francis more than we'll ever know him as a wrestler.
Yeah, and top dollar, yeah.
And then release him not too long after.
Yeah, no, it was WWE's been doing some questionable things, and I've said it multiple times for I don't even know talking about this, but it's been going on for a while, and I'll tell you this, I think they're setting up for a sale. I could be wrong. I could be reading this completely wrong, but what other reason would you be doing to do this? Is it, there might be another reason for it. Maybe they were afraid of AEW taking all the talent, so they wanted to stockpile that for themselves and be selfish.
Yeah, there's just there's
only so much
all
slots.
These rumors out there that are trying to essentially fatten up Tony Khan, that he's going to go out of business because he's going to get so many talents and he won't be able to afford them. But that's just stupid because I don't think that's saying Tony Khan doesn't know how to do business. That's literally just saying you're just going to give him all these talent and that he's so dumb. I mean, this guy started a wrestling company. And yes, he's got more than just Tony Khan behind him. You have to remember this too. Just like Vince McMahon, there's more people in the room than just Tony Khan. And probably, unlike Vince McMahon, the people that are in the room probably have an influence on what's going on. So no, I don't think Tony Khan is that dumb and has that many dumb people around him that he'd have this great company and he'd build it up really high and then he'd just squander it all away based off of not knowing how to do his books.
He's doing the right thing. I think the way he's building his brand through different products, like the YouTube channels, I think are fantastic. I think, especially Elevation, these other, spin-offs of Dynamite and Rampage, I think are great. I think it's a great way to get talent over. You're seeing some talent that have been working in the Nightmare Factory with I'm not a big fan of them, but some that aren't the best performers are actually some of the best teachers and trainers, and that means QT Marshall is one of them. I just never liked him on camera. I don't like what he brings to the table there. But that doesn't mean you're not an asset. And it seems like, the Nightmare Factory, I mean, Cody and him run the show there, and obviously they're just developing some talent there. So that tells me that he's got a job there for a long time.
Yeah, I think what Tony Khan's doing, and I think AEW is doing it right. I don't think
100%.
They're going to be as dumb as Vince McMahon, if that is the theory. Other than that, I mean, it's really hard to understand. I've tried my best as the more releases happen to understand the releases. Now, we had conversation here off air when this all happened days ago. Seems like it should have happened weeks ago.
It feels like,
because it feels like it's been weeks ago since it's happened, but only days ago, about 1 week ago, that these releases happened. And, you brought up the point that there was the theory that a lot of these guys maybe were unvaccinated, females and males were unvaccinated, and that's why they were released. And the issue I guess I have with any of that theory is the fact that if they're not being told, you can't meet an expectation if you're not given that expectation. So if that was the case, then it seems like they were going to be fired anyways. They didn't want to have Nia Jax, or they didn't want to have AJ Francis or anybody on Hit Row, because of the fact that, at least, regardless of your view on the vaccination or anything like that, or the crazy hoops you want them to jump through, if you want this person to jump off a building to save their job, even if that's a dumb request, even if that's an unreasonable request, you should at least tell them, hey, you got to jump off the building to save your job.
Yep.
If you literally say you didn't jump off the building, then you didn't even give them the chance to do it, regardless of if they were going to do it or if they're not doing it or what their opinion on doing it is. So if the idea is that they did it because they were unvaccinated, well, did you give them the opportunity to get vaccinated? Did you give them a deadline? Did you say you have to be vaccinated?
We may never actually know the truth behind that. Here's the thing, because I think my assumption is WWE is smart enough to not come out and say, yeah, you know what, we don't believe in your personal choices, so to speak. You're gonna get let go. Because here's the thing: I know Vince has a ton of money, but do you think he wants to be have lawsuits and things like that? No, he's gonna, like any business person, is going to find a way or a loophole to make it look like it was something completely different. Like, oh, we're just, like they've been saying, the quote unquote budget cuts. That to me, there's loopholes, and I'm not saying they're doing that. I'm not trying to say that that's the deal. But I wouldn't surprise me if them or other businesses were doing these type of things, because they, their views may be different than, the company's views may be different than an individual's views on, for example, the vaccine or anything like that. So, I mean, it's there's a lot of debate out there across the country. It's not just a WWE thing. It's a worldwide thing. So, I think a lot of it has to do with, I think when AEW was starting to become more legit, I think WWE was like, let's give all these guys and gals a bunch of money. Let's just keep them here so Tony can't get guys and gals that WWE's had and been built on. So that's where I think it is, and I think they realized there's only so many slots available. There's only so much TV time you can give to talent. So here's the thing: you got to figure out who's going to get the TV time, and who you're going to invest more time in, and then those that are kind of sitting on the sidelines, maybe their thinking was, if they're sitting on the sidelines making a bunch of money, what's the point of keeping them?
I do have to agree, though, with Tony Khan. He said this past week on Busted Open Radio that when you sign a contract with WWE, it's not like you're signing a real contract. You're more or less signing a temporary arrangement. Sure. Because essentially, regardless of whether these guys should stick around forever or their contract should be re-signed, if you don't want to re-sign their contracts, that's one thing. But the fact that they're letting these people go all mid-contract, and it's not just, hey, he's not re-upping or his contract's going to expire and then he's going to leave. It's literally, a lot of these people are in the middle of contracts and
they just got new contracts.
And they just got new contracts.
Like BFAB, for example.
So it makes you wonder exactly what the legitimacy of these contracts really are.
Here's the thing, too, and I heard this on, I don't have the full quote in my head, but I just remember listening to Eric Bischoff on 83 Weeks. I love that show, and he makes some great points because he's been in the in the bunker with a lot of these people that are making these decisions. He knows the business. So when he made the comment that he made the other day, which that's where I heard the Tony Khan stuff, because they brought that information up. And Eric Bischoff said there's a main difference between AEW and WWE. WWE has a responsibility to take care of its shareholders because they are a public entity. They're publicly traded. AEW is still a private company, so Tony can do whatever the hell he wants. Vince McMahon and his board of directors have to take care of the shareholders. That's just business 101. And when Eric Bischoff said that, I was like, that makes complete sense. So I'm giving Eric Bischoff a lot of props for coming out and saying that, because a lot of people were giving Vince McMahon and WWE a lot of flack, but you have to remember, it's just like any other business. If it's a publicly traded company, you have to do what you got to do for your shareholders. As much as people may not like it or it's insensitive, this and that, that's just the way the deal goes. And for me, I'm gonna stand on this ground and say, hey, I really believe that WWE is up for sale. As much as McMahon's, it doesn't seem like they're coming out and saying anything. But why do this? There's two ways for me to look at it. They're either doing it just to appease their shareholders. Maybe the board of directors said, hey, we gotta do some things. Our shareholders are getting concerned, or maybe they are doing a sale. I hope I'm wrong, because I've also read reports that Vince's granddaughter, so the oldest daughter of Stephanie and Paul, aka Triple H, has started working on becoming a wrestler, and she's at the PC. She's a teenager. I think she's 15 or 16, give or take.
How did she get access to the PC at such a young age?
I can't figure that out.
Prodigy
I know.
That they discovered on the street. I can't imagine how she gets access to the Performance Center at such a young age.
I know, but
she must know somebody.
She must have an in somewhere. But in all honesty, what I was reading, because I read these quotes earlier today, actually. I guess she really wants, and I don't have the quote again in front of me, but just going off of what I remember reading, she wants her granddad's job. She wants to own the company. So maybe they're not doing a sale. I don't know, but to me, the way they're structuring what they're doing, moving these pieces around, that just tells me it feels like a sale's pending. I hope I'm wrong, but we'll stay tuned to find out. It's gonna be fun.
Because here's the thing: regardless of what you talk about, the shareholders or business in the past, business in the '90s, whatever company you're working for, there has been WWE and WWF for a very long time, and there has been a public WWE, WWF for a very long time, and yet what we've seen in the last few years has been unprecedented. There has
100%.
never been these mass layoffs. There's been once in a while, they put out like 5 or 6 names. I think like 2008, 2009. They throw 5 names out there, and then we hear another 5 names in another couple of years. And everybody else other than that is normally individual. Kurt Angle, good luck in your future endeavors. That whole gimmick they used to do. Now they don't say good luck in your future endeavors because we're not doing individual here, individual there. It's like
it's a group.
As of Monday, it's like these 19 people are getting released, and it's crazy. So yeah, whatever they're doing is definitely unprecedented and is brand new. Like I mentioned before the Survivor Series video I did, 80 talent have been released this calendar year alone, and that is more talent than Impact Wrestling has total.
And we've talked about it on previous episodes, that they could start a whole new promotion with all these released talent. There's so much talent out there. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody, maybe scoops up all this talent and makes, like a Major League Wrestling, for example, we mentioned, makes another promotion out of it. Here's the thing.
There are a lot of promotions. I mean,
there's a ton out there.
I don't
there
think
really
you
is.
need to make a new promotion, per se, with these exact talent.
No, you can build something else.
I think if you
though.
have an existing company, though, it's nice to know that there's this new influx of talent all over. If you're an MLW or you're a GCW,
yes,
or you're Impact Wrestling or AW or any other company that is.
I don't.
It is nice to have that.
Here's the thing, though.
The
thing that I've noticed when I see, I read a lot of Twitter. I see when I get on there, I scroll through and I just see some of the comments. Here's the thing: just because you get cut or fired from WWE does not mean they're instantly going to AW. We got to get that narrative gone. Let's see, Bray Wyatt, Wyndham. He's not in AW. I mean,
yet. Yeah.
Honestly,
some are saying in this upcoming Winter is Coming AW event, the one that we saw Sting debut at last year.
You think that could be
Bray Wyatt? But
I hear it's between them and Impact. It's not Impact's. It's crazy to think, but Impact has a chance to get some deals done with some former talent, former members of the famed Wyatt family. So I mean, it's.
Bray Wyatt is actually the first announced name at the WrestleCon in Dallas 2022. They're returning this year after a 2-year hiatus, obviously one for COVID, one for WrestleMania just not being up to par as other WrestleManias have been in the past, being more of a scaled-down version. But this upcoming WrestleCon, that is the big wrestling convention with all the wrestlers that are not WWE signed, Bray Wyatt, the first name, already announced for that WrestleCon in 2022 in Dallas. But yeah, there's a lot of companies right now that are options, and I mentioned GCW because since I feel like the Dark Side of the Ring episode on Nick Cage, GCW has been rising up the ranks when it comes to its place in the indie world. Yep. Obviously, Ring of Honor has gone from at one time, in many people's eyes, the second best company in the United States
to no more.
To pretty much no more, or at least taking a hiatus.
For this point,
where they even currently sit is probably not in the top 5.
Yeah.
But GCW, they've been rising up, maybe because of the help of that Dark Side of the Ring episode and the rise of Nick Cage to the public conscious. They just put tickets on sale this morning for a show at Hammerstein Ballroom, a famed ECW arena. Obviously, the ECW One Night Stands were there. Ring of Honors holds some big shows there in the past. I think like Final Battles. But it's a historic wrestling venue. And GCW, which was running... let's just say not any bigger place. Obviously, they're not running bigger places. This isn't a bigger place.
Yeah.
But they were running, essentially bare indie places. Real, like, less than 1,000 seats. You know what I mean?
like your local VFW kind of a situation.
This place is looking at, like, 2,000 seats. And they look like they sold the place out. There's, I think, a few scattering of tickets left.
That's
but the
good.
Hammerstein Ballroom, GCW, an event coming up in December, looks like it is going to be sold out. So they're rising right up through the ranks there. Obviously, the Matt Cardonas of the world showed up there. John Moxley showed up there.
Yep.
So they're rising through the ranks as well. There's a big match coming up this weekend in New Japan that's got Lance Archer. It's got John Moxley. And it's got Eddie Kingston and Suzuki. I think it's a rematch of AEW's.
What's the date on this?
I think it's Sunday night. It's New Japan Wrestling. But it's going to be.
Wait, so is Moxley back in the fold?
He's going to be appearing at this show on Sunday night. It's a rematch of the AEW Grand Slam main event in which had Archer and Suzuki, I think, team up against.
So hold on, I'm trying to think of the
Moxley
timeline here.
Kingston.
Did he do like a 21-day program? Maybe is that what Mox did?
Yeah, that's a good question because, like I said,
that's. I mean, hey, if that's all he needed is a couple weeks just to get himself back on a positive note, back on track. Mm-hmm. I hope it works. I was just surprised. I didn't know that. I honestly didn't know that. I thought he was still staying away from the business and handling the personal stuff.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, it's a match this upcoming week. We'll try to get some of the details for you on what exactly this match is. New Japan Wrestling. They've got like the New Japan America side and the New Japan Japanese side. So to actually go to New Japan's official website with Japan, it's like this show doesn't come up, but. It is advertised. We'll bring it up right now.
I did see, by the way, speaking of New Japan, there was a point in time, I don't remember the exact timeline, but fairly recently that WWE and New Japan were working on, they were close to a deal. And, working on having that door open, so to speak, that forbidden door open with WWE. And then I guess I'm assuming New Japan, just said, yeah, we're just going to stick with AEW, or maybe WWE said, no, we're good. You guys are with AEW. Maybe I don't know how the deal fell through, but I guess it was pretty close to a deal, and then it just fell apart.
Well, here is the answer to your question. So here's the answer. This actually is going to be a match already been pre-taped. The match was a Philadelphia street fight because it's from the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia. It was actually taped 1 month ago in the month of August when they were in Philadelphia, and it is going to air this Sunday night.
So he's still out of the picture, so to speak, taking care of the personal stuff.
Yes.
Okay. That's what I thought. I mean, if that was a quick turnaround, that's cool. But
that is probably why this wasn't up on their upcoming events on New Japan's website. I was looking for it because it's from the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, the famed ECW Arena.
Yep.
But it has already happened. The Philadelphia Street Fight, Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston taking on Suzuki and Lance Archer. So that answers that question.
Okay.
That he is not essentially back in that regard.
Okay.
So he is still in the rehab.
Still taking care of things.
But it fooled the rest. It fooled me because I was under the
wasn't
impression that this event was
yeah.
going to be a live event this Sunday night. I know MLW is doing a big event that's tomorrow night that is clearly pre-taped because I also looked for them. That is not a live American Thanksgiving night event that they're putting on. So that will also be pre-taped as well. But they are hyping that for MLW, and they got some big names in that, and that's another location for a lot of these released talents to go. But overall, let's just stick now back to Survivor Series itself. Yeah. Sunday night, Survivor Series, the Barclays Center. Surprised when I went there, to be honest with you, of the fact that it's not an old building, but all the stuff that's gone through there, and I've never made my way there before.
I'm shocked, by the way.
And why I say that is I know people who aren't even big, huge, travel for wrestling kind of people, and they've already been there. One, because they're not just an NBA home, but they host a ton of college basketball. They host a ton of concerts. And when it comes to WWE, I want to say they probably, hypothetically, not realistically, but it feels like they've been there like 100 times. 4 years in a row they had Survivor Series or SummerSlam there. 4 years in a row. When I went for WrestleMania, they had NXT there, and they've had NXT there a few times. They've had the WWE Hall of Fame there. And I didn't go when I went to WrestleMania 35 in New York City. I didn't go that weekend to any of the events at the Barclays Center. The only outside WWE event I went to was the one at Madison Square Garden for New Japan. So again, with all that being said, and all the pay-per-views they've hosted, SummerSlams they've hosted, Monday Night Raws they've hosted, the Raw 25th anniversary, all that stuff. Strange that it was the first time going to Barclays Center. But no, overall, it felt like a Big Four pay-per-view. Because of the fact that they had the Superstore there and they had it open for a couple days. So it's really good press because they've been hosting Brooklyn Nets games there for a few days. So if you went to a Brooklyn Nets game, if you're a wrestling fan or not, you had to walk by this store that was attached to the Barclays Center that had wrestling all over and be like, this must be a big wrestling event if you have a permanent store set up, and it's a Survivor Series store, stuff like that, stuff that you normally do for the SummerSlams and the WrestleManias of the world. So that made it feel like a big time event. Obviously, they had the kickoff show, and I mentioned to you, they did that from outside. I don't know if that necessarily was to make it seem like a bigger event. I know Barclays Center seemed like it didn't have a lot of room on the inside, but with the other kickoff shows that they've been doing for the last pay-per-views, they set it up someplace in the arena. And it's like you can see like the entranceway behind them. Yep. And that's a normal setup. I think that doing it outside kind of gave it that feel of like the whole of the New York City vibe, not just being within the arena. Because when you kind of spread it out. You spread out WWE. It's not just like, hey, we're just at this arena tonight, but it's like, hey, we're gonna have stuff spread out, maybe a few blocks. We're gonna have some vendors outside the arena selling t-shirts, that kind of stuff. So it did have the Big Four feel, and I have to agree with you. Now that I've, gone to the event, and now that I think about it more, especially the fact that I attended a house show on Saturday night right here in Syracuse, is the fact that, I kind of dig more so what you were saying, the non-knowing of the results, the being able to watch matches and just appreciate them. And it's so funny because AEW prides itself on being the wrestling company. And, here we are at WWE watching a WWE show 100% for wrestling.
Yeah, that was fun. Because
it was wrestling.
Yeah,
I mean, all the matches were just it made you feel like you were watching it for the 80s nostalgia again. Of like, we're watching these matches just to see the matches.
I'm glad you finally you see where I'm coming from. That's good to see, because and now you see why I love Survivor Series so much. I've just enjoyed it for so many years. The card itself, we're not going to go match by match, but I have to ask you, is there a couple moments that you were like, man, that was cool, or was there any thumbs down moments?
Like the Charlotte Becky Lynch match, I think, was the match of the night. That was a great opener. And again, no titles have to be on the line, but just an overall great match. Felt like I'm watching. Like,
how'd you like the finish? I love that finish.
I did hear something that, they were going to maybe reenact some sort of screw job. Obviously, Becky Lynch won in very controversial fashion there.
That was a great
but
finish.
It wasn't essentially a recap of the screw jobs of 97 and then the repeat of it in 1998.
But I gotta tell you, though, I know you weren't. I don't know. You guys couldn't hear the commentary in the arena.
No,
right?
you cannot hear the
I was going to say,
commentary
because I wasn't sure. I just want to make sure you couldn't hear it. But on the commentary side, because I watched from home, and I got to tell you, the commentary on that particular match was fantastic. They told a really good story. And then at the end of the match, where Becky did, where she grabbed the rope for the 1, 2, 3, and where the referee was out of the sight view of the referee, you can hear. I think it was Graves that might have called it out and said, "That's why that's why you wait to the last second to put your hand on the rope." And that it was a good sell. I agree with you. That was the match of the night. I really got to tell you, I didn't care very much for the Battle Royal, especially knowing Omos was in.
And this is something that I was actually bringing up literally as we drive to the event. I brought this up before. The whole idea of pre-show versus main show. To me, the show's the show. WrestleMania, people say WrestleMania is 7 hours long because it really is 7 hours long, because the people who go to it and the people who watch it are watching the pre-show as if they're watching WrestleMania.
It's all one.
It's all one. And a good example of it being all one is the fact that they don't have matches that are designated for the pre-show only. Like when WrestleMania makes matches, they make matches and then they designate the matches to the pre-show how they see fit. So if you're excited to see this specific match, it's probably on the back of the t-shirt that you're buying, and it's in the program, and it's on the billboard, it's on all that stuff. And then you get there at the time of the show starting and you missed it because it was on the pre-show. And that was a good example of what happened at Survivor Series. As we're driving there, I'm like, see, we all know that the Battle Royal is going to be on the pre-show, but, what if at the last minute they switch it out and they make another match? They put another match in the pre-show.
Yes, they did.
Which they ended up doing, which they ended up moving the Battle Royal to the main show and made which I thought was a solid main show match in the sense of just its build. It's champion versus champion.
Two great competitors.
Big champions. Yeah, the fact that Shinsuke and Damian Priest were on the pre-show was, to a lot of people, that was a big match that a lot of people were looking forward to see. So, if you got into the show at 8 o'clock, you missed essentially a match that you thought was solid to be on the card.
That you were going to be like, yep, I'm good paying money for that part of that match. For that part of the show.
And there's certain matches that whether it's WrestleMania, SummerSlam, whatever pay-per-view, there's certain matches when they are named, they are solid, that is going to be on the card. That's going to be on the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And for that I thought that would be one.
I for sure thought that there's no way that was going to be on the pre-show. I thought that was two great competitors, which they put on a solid match. Of course they did, because that's what they do. These guys are fantastic.
Especially, too, when we go talking about the Battle Royal. When the Battle Royal was moved to the main show, it made me think, okay, well, what are they doing here for the Battle Royal? Kind of like
are they gonna have any
WrestleMania
surprises?
32 when they brought out all the surprises, Shaq, Tatanka, Diamond Dallas Page.
Yep.
So you're like, oh, I see why they moved this to the main card, because the Andre the Giant Battle Royal this
year
had a bunch of surprises. But the Battle Royal you're talking about, Survivor Series, Omos wins the Battle Royal.
And here's the thing. I got to cut you off real quick.
Unclimactic feeling. He kind of just dominated there at the end.
And that's what it was. If the point of getting Omos over even more, you accomplished that, but in the same token, you made 24 others just look like crap, honestly. I get that you're pushing Omos, as this monster, this just giant, this guy that nobody can beat. And yes, that they portrayed that, but the problem was you had all these competitors that literally just got launched out of the ring like it was nothing. Now, I do want to, speaking of Omos, I want to go on to that really quick. I don't know if you saw the Taker comments. Taker had some really interesting comments where he pretty much said, this is the closest thing we're going to get as wrestling fans to Andre the Giant.
And I think that's really short-sighted because I like Omos a lot. Don't get me wrong.
So do I.
But without a doubt, Andre, there is only one Andre. Yeah. And there have been other people in my eyes who I think the big shows of the world got those same accommodations and same, recommendations. And now, obviously, not just fell flat and not being the next Andre. But I think when it comes to Omos, no offense, the guy's really tall and the guy's really big. But I did not look at this guy and say that this is going to be. I've looked at Batista that way. Before Batista, when he was Deacon Batista, before he finally came out, when he was kind of a nobody, I thought that they're like hiding something here. And even with a Big E, that, you know, they're kind of hiding this guy off as a managerial role. This guy can go on his own. I've seen that before where they're not a main star. They're not an Andre the Giant right away, but they ended up, you see something there. And with Omos, I see something there for sure. I see something there of him being a great singles competitor.
I agree.
But I would have had to make the Andre the Giant comparison before Undertaker said that for me to then like be like, you know, I was thinking that too. But you weren't, and I know I wasn't thinking Andre the Giant ever while looking at Omos.
I wasn't thinking that, but I do want to take part of there was like a minute and a half clip. It was on the bump. I think that it's called the bump.
Yes.
It was like a minute and a half, but I did like the other part of the comments where Taker already said, I've already given him, you know, some advice. And literally, I guess he's extended that, more, pretty much said it out there. Omos, if you don't like what they're doing, call me. That to me was a bigger deal than him comparing him to Andre, because when you have somebody that's already got you already got a stamp of approval from Taker, that means a lot. And if you don't like what WWE's doing, and Taker reaches out and says, hey, dude, call me if you need anything. You know, that to me tells me all I need to know about Omos in the future. I think the future is very bright. We got to pump the brakes on the Andre the Giant stuff, because Andre the Giant, there was one Andre the Giant, but I'm excited to see what Omos does going forward. He's a young guy.
I mean, they made a documentary about how he transcended the business.
I don't see Omos doing that, but I do see him being I think he's going to be a mega star going forward. I think he's got, to me, this is going to, no offense to the Giant, Big Show, Paul White, but I could see him, Omos, kind of being in between. Like, he's above Big Show at the end, but he's not Andre. I know that's a big statement. I know. I get the word big, of course. I do like Big Show. I've always liked Big Show, but I just got this feeling about Omos.
I felt you could have got that feeling about Great Khali. While he was not great in the ring or anything like that, and to be honest with you, Andre the Giant later in his career was not as well.
I never felt that way about Khali. I
never really felt that way exactly about Khali, but believe me, I made the comparisons of more of this guy being an imposing, freak of nature in that sense of being an attraction. That's what Andre the Giant was. He was an attraction.
Yeah.
Do you think Omos, when you look at him, do you think of him as an attraction of like,
not yet.
This is something that, no, exactly. He's just a very
yet,
tall athlete.
That's the thing. Not yet. If WWE can build him the correct way, which who the hell knows anymore with WWE, because obviously we've had enough conversations on our show here for a long time. What the hell is WWE doing? If WWE can do this the right way with Omos and build him up, and also what Undertaker said in that comment, I'm going to add one other piece to it. Protect your identity as a big man. You can't you got to make it like if you're going to get knocked down, it has to be in a moment where no one like it's just the coolest thing ever. Maybe at a WrestleMania or something. That's what has to happen. WWE has to build it the right way. You can't have him, get beat by, I don't know. I'm not nothing. I love Riddle, but you can't have him get beat on Riddle on a random Monday Night Raw or something. You got to build it, keep building it. I think they've been doing it okay. It's been a slow build, I think, but eventually, it's going to happen. I think there's going to be a blowout between him and AJ, and then when that happens, it's either going to be, all right, Omos, you're going to the moon, or you're going to be Great Khali.
So, speaking of things that have transcended wrestling and made a big deal, I think this is not as big a deal as the world has been making it. But this past Monday night on Raw at Barclays Center, the second time at Barclays Center, a fan came into the ring and attacked a performer. We saw it at the Hall of Fame against Bret Hart at Barclays Center, and now we see it against Seth Rollins on his way out from the ring. And while definitely this is a big deal per se, I don't think it's as big a deal as the rest of the world is making this out to be.
Why do you say that?
Because this is not this has never happened before, and more importantly, Seth Rollins came out of this unscathed, unhurt.
Thankfully,
yes, he was tackled down, he got out of it. The security came in, referees came in and took him away. But we've seen some wrestlers jump in the ring. I remember years ago on a Monday Night Raw knocking Eddie Guerrero off the ladder with his match in RVD, just coming in. I mean, those are serious spots you get in the ring where you can't really cut away.
Yeah, that's
because with this sense they cut away real quick, but in that regard, you can't really cut away.
No,
and you're knocking people down who are on ladders, which is already a dangerous like well choreographed
Yes.
stunts. So you're taking people essentially who are doing things that are very dangerous, who are well choreographed, well prepared, and then you were catching them off guard, like standing on top of a ladder. And
Now I normally like I saw the clip the next day about the whole Seth Rollins being attacked by a fan because I watched Raw like a day late with Hulu. I'm a Hulu guy, so I watch it like, you know, they had like the condensed version. I was looking for it because I saw the clip and then I saw the clip on Twitter and then I was like, okay, so I got to the Seth Rollins Balor match and I see him walking out and then they cut away. So like Hulu and WWE worked that out, so it didn't even. I didn't see anything.
That they show him leaving, and then he gets attacked, and then they literally cut away real quick back to Finn Balor in the ring, and security comes and takes him out. And to be honest with you, and then Seth Rollins came out later in the night to watch the main event. He kind of joked about it tongue in cheek when he came out because he looked to the left and looked to the right to make sure the coast was clear. But that's Seth. You know, if Seth got hurt or it was a much bigger deal than it was, yes, it was a fan came out. We've seen it in all sorts of sports. They took care of it. And I just don't think that it's crazy and that out of the blue.
It would have been crazy if, you know, if Seth became seriously injured, like the guy walked up and like got him with a knife or something.
Or there,
for
exactly.
example.
Or it lasted longer than it did. I mean, if he came in, it became like a back and forth fight.
Seth got off him pretty quick. Let's be honest. He was already off him as the security was getting there. So security and the referees. He was like Seth obviously knows what he's doing. He's been a wrestler.
This was no wrestling version of the Malice at the Palace.
No, absolutely not. He was fine. And I don't know if you caught some of the, you know, I caught some of the audio that it was recorded on someone's phone. He was pretty much, I would have been too. He was like cussing this dude out, like, you know, MFer, you know, he was saying.
And how many times have you seen like, you know, them come to the ring? I feel like they've come to the ring like on the APA before, and like wrestlers have like tagged up and like beaten a guy up, you know, as they get shots in, as the referees are taking them away. Which, to be honest with you, again, Seth didn't really do any of that stuff. He wasn't like getting any shots in.
He was just trying to get out and get away.
Yeah,
which I'm glad he didn't, because
it was just strange that this was covered by like a lot of like national media.
But here's the thing, though, I give Seth Rollins credit because most people, I would say maybe the majority of people in that situation, once they get out, they're whooping that dude's ass. That's just, but to have that that wherewithal to like, you know what, all right, I'm out of the situation, I'm separating myself. Yeah, I'm gonna cuss the dude out and be like, yeah, F you, blah blah blah. But he didn't go in and start swinging. That shows you a lot about Seth Rollins, and I give Seth Rollins a lot of credit. He handled it like a professional. He didn't get hurt. He did what he had to do to get out of the situation. He was good. So I just say kudos to Seth Rollins. He turned the situation into a positive.
Final takeaways from Survivor Series. You didn't have to be there to know this, but the fact that the event ended about 11:15, 11:20 really kind of makes me not understand why we moved the time up to 8 o'clock Eastern time from 7 o'clock, because the reason it became 7 o'clock many years ago was the fact that these pay-per-views were running longer and longer, and people were saying, hey, if you're going to go to 11:30, start it at 7, so then that way you're not going over those traditional times of 10:30, 10:45. And then here we are, starting the pay-per-view at 8, and then going over those traditional times, going to 11:15, 11:20, showing that we could have started this pay-per-view at 7 o'clock Eastern time.
And folks, for those that don't know, Jared had to work the next morning, so God bless him for getting into the office that day.
Yep, I did. And then in Brooklyn, if you're not aware, especially those in upstate New York where I live, New Jersey, New York City, and Brooklyn, they're all the same area, but it is definitely a much different beast when it comes to getting out of one versus the other. For example, I did not get to where I've been to before, the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey, which is a stone's throw from New York City. You can see the Empire State Building, you can see the whole skyline of New York City from Newark, New Jersey, and they've had pay-per-views there. I saw Backlash 2018 there. By the time I got to that area to fill in gas, where I'm in Newark, New Jersey, still looking at New York City, it was clearly 1 o'clock in the morning. So it takes you a good hour, and you know, with the tunnels and the bridges to get in and through Manhattan and out the other end.
So it took you that long, huh?
Yes, to get to that part. So it just shows you that if this was at MetLife Stadium, for example, if this event was at MetLife Stadium, that's an hour and 10 minutes, an hour and some change off my travel time coming back. Like if this event ended at 11:30 in Newark, New Jersey, where I'm walking out of the arena and I'm looking at New York City and I get in my car and I drive away, I'm home at 2 o'clock. But that added having to then
so what time did you get home?
It was about 4:30.
What time did you have to work?
The alarm hit at 7. I had to be there at 7:30.
Wow, that's a quick turnaround. That was woof. When you told me you had to work the next day, I was like, man, I hope you get real caffeinated.
Yeah, I mean, we made it work. And that's how you always do it for any of these shows. But overall, I think it was a good show. And the fact that I went to the house show on Saturday night where all these titles are on the line, and might I add, before we finish, probably the most star-studded house show I've ever been to. It was a super show, and just every major star in WWE was at it, other than Big E, who is the champion of that brand. But other than him, and on most of the New Day, just star-studded show. Both women's champions were there. And the reason I'm bringing this up is the fact that then we know the results of all those matches because the championships are quote unquote on the line at all these house shows, which gives away the results because the titles aren't changing hands. Damian Priest is not going to lose his U.S. belt the night before Survivor Series. Roman Reigns isn't going to lose his belt. That Becky Lynch isn't going to lose her belt against Bianca Belair. Stuff like that. That was the main event, Becky and Bianca for the women's belt of Becky's. Charlotte put her belt on the line. You knew she wasn't going to lose. Stuff like that.
Well, I got to ask you though, as because I want to know. So, how was the attendance at the live event in Syracuse?
The last few live events, including this one, have been some of the better attended live events I've been to in Syracuse.
What would you say in the War Memorial, which seats
I would
like
say
6,000?
high threes, 3,900.
Okay. So like 2/3 of the venue was full.
Yes.
That's
I would
good.
say definitely if you know how to prepare it for television that you could get a TV show in there. Because obviously they wouldn't sell the whole thing like that. They would push everybody to the TV side.
Yeah, you'd have the TV side. You wouldn't have much on the non.
I would say it was a similar crowd to AEW Dynamite in Rochester.
Wow, that's not then that's not a bad thing then.
Yes. So with that being said, that made me like Survivor Series a little more because again, you don't know the results. I was wishing there'd be also a little something more. We didn't need The Rock. I said that. I didn't need The Rock, but we could have saw Bailey. We could have saw something.
Asuka?
We could have saw the Mysterios breakup. That's a big thing people are talking about potentially happening in the future. We saw none of that. It was just some good matches, and we saw Pizza Hut get a really good commercial.
Yeah, good for
and
Pizza
makes me
Hut.
now want to get that triple box.
Yeah, I mean,
works.
it's not a bad deal. So good kudos to Pizza Hut.
For Brandon, I'm Jared. Have a good Thanksgiving, and we'll be back next week to talk everything in the world of wrestling on our way to NXT War Games.
Can't wait next week. And one last thing, Johnny Gargano, he just re-signed for 1 week, so he's going to do the match, and then we'll see where he goes.
All right, that's the show.